Remodelers and custom builders, your marketing funnel is probably broken, but good news, there are some clear, easy steps in how you can fix it, and that is what we're talking about in today's video. Let's dig in. So let's talk about today what most remodelers are doing, and then how we can shift that approach just a little bit to make sure that you can actually close more deals and land more projects. So let's look at the kind of traditional funnel here. And so it's broken up into a few different stages. The first one being awareness. Then we come down to consideration. And then finally, decision. So every prospect of yours is typically going to flow through this process. First, they need to be aware that they want and need to do a project. Hey, I was looking at my kitchen. It's kind of ugly. Now I'm aware that I want to remodel it. Next is consideration. So, what are my options for this? I could DIY the kitchen. I'm not very handy. That sounds like a nightmare. Or I could hire a company. Cool. That's the direction I want to go. Within both of those options, they have further consideration, which is, hey, which company do I want to go with? And over in the DIY stage, they have, how am I going to do this? What tools do I need? There's a lot of other stuff. So that's consideration. When they finally get down to decision, that is, okay, I am selecting this company and I'm starting the project. So most of the time, when you get a referral, that person is already aware, they've already considered, who they're going to, what route they're going to go with, and then they got a direct recommendation from somebody to go with you. So they are almost at the bottom of the decision phase when they get to you. And so if you're used to that, then anything else feels like a nightmare. It feels like it's hard, feels like marketing's a waste, marketing doesn't work. And that's because you're used to scraping the bottom of the barrel, literally at the bottom of the funnel, with the best leads that are served up to you. So let's talk about how we can use marketing and use our understanding of this process to make sure that you actually are driving people down and then pulling them into deciding to go with you. So we don't want to be pushy, but we want to make sure that we're driving this process forward. So we're going to talk about a few different phases here. And the first one is research. So this is where everyone starts. They're looking for answers to questions. They're trying to figure out how to approach and tackle this project. This can happen over days, weeks, months, and years. But here is where we're actually making people aware of our own company. And that's where we're answering questions that they have. We're creating lots and lots of content that addresses the research that a homeowner is trying to do. So we talk a lot about this when we talk about building up your own traffic. So this is working on blogs, videos, SEO, getting visibility in AI, but it's creating a lot of content that answers homeowner questions and pulls them into you. This helps that person do research. Then we're going to move them into a nurturing bucket. And here is generally going to be email, social, and retargeting. Now, the interesting thing about this funnel is that a lot of kind of classical marketers will talk about this funnel and they'll say, hey, we need to create specific content for this stage, specific content for this stage, and specific content for this stage, and we can just pull them in and we can just kind of drive them right down the funnel. But it doesn't really work like that, right? This is kind of how the process works today, is somebody will say, okay, I'm ready to do this kitchen remodel. I want to get this project started. So they will start with Google. And then on Google, they're going to find, blogs, websites, and they're going to do some research. Then they might actually bounce over to some remodeler websites. From there, they might actually go to the Remodelers social media pages. Then they might stop their search. They come back in a few weeks or a few months and they go to ChatGPT and they do some prompting and they're asking questions. And that's giving them more information. And so what this actually looks like in today's world is this prospect is just bouncing up and down the funnel. They're going from here to here to here to here. They're going back here. They just start here. They bounce over here. They're moving everywhere. We've all done this. It's not foreign. This isn't crazy. This is how people research. This is just what it looks like today, especially for something that is a large purchase, so high ticket, and it has a lot of unknowns, and there's a lot of details and moving parts. It has a big impact to somebody's life. You know, we're operating in their home. It impacts their family. It's going to impact multiple months probably of their living experience. And so they're going to do a lot of research and they're going to bounce all over the place. And so trying to live in a world where we think, yeah, we can just get somebody to our website and just kind of drive them right down the funnel and into the sales process in a matter of days or a week or something, it's only going to happen just a fraction of the time for the people that just happen to hit your website when they're actually ready in that moment. And so what we want to do is actually acknowledge that and just say, it's okay. I know that a lot of people coming to my website are not ready to buy today, but how can I kind of insert myself into their research process so that as they're bouncing up and down the funnel and they're going all over the place, I give myself the best shot that I am one of their top choices when it comes time for them to book some sales calls, talk to some companies, and make their final decision. So they're researching, they're nurturing, and then we move them to sales. And here is where we're trying to, build trust, add clarity, and then close the deal. Okay, let's look at a few interesting statistics. So first of all, we have to note that this is a long buying cycle, right? Generally, 6 to 12 months. Sure, some people are going to be below that, and then some people are going to be beyond that, but definitely this is a common range. So if we think about this and then overlaying this, they're bouncing around dozens of websites. They're cruising forever over a long period of time. So we need to know that and acknowledge that. This is high ticket, right? These are, could be 25K to, 1 million plus. It's a big decision. So they need trust and they need information to make the decision. There's some data out there that says that buyers will read over 100 pages of information when they're making a high ticket, large decision. That's a lot of content that they're consuming. So again, these are just things to acknowledge and know about the homeowner making their decision. We can't control these. These are just realities, these are facts, and so we need to understand them so that we can overlay our strategy here. And so the other thing is here, it's early stage leads. It's only 22% make contact within 90 days. And so that lines up with this, right? 22% of leads, they're under this window, but everyone else is kind of pushing towards that longer buying cycle. So we know these facts about our buyer, and so what should we be doing? And so when somebody gets to our website and we convert them, we want to help them research. And so when they get to our website, we're going to start with convert. And that means we need to have a lead magnet. And that's something like a pricing guide, a style quiz, something where they hit your website and they can fill out a form. The goal is we need their email address. We need this. Once we have this, now we can start to deliver the answers to their questions. We can deliver the content. We can deliver project spotlight pages. We can tell them about our process. We can highlight a couple of awards that we've won. But that is the nurture process, is basically saying, okay, I'm going to email you 1 to 4 times per month, email, and I'm going to deliver the research. So that is, again, all the things we just listed out: process, money, FAQs, project spotlight pages, and so on. You can include videos. I would love it if you did. A lot of remodelers are not leveraging video right now, and this is one of the most powerful ways you can actually build a connection with somebody before they've ever talked to your company or met anyone in person on your team. So we're going to use all of these things to deliver the information that those homeowners are looking for, and we're going to build trust so that when they make this large decision, when they actually get down to it and they're meeting you in the sales process, you've taken their trust from a 0 up. Hopefully it's at 50, 60, 70. We're going to get it as high as we can, but it comes through education and repetition. And so we want to make sure we have a really good nurture strategy that will operate across many months or years. We have several clients that have landed multiple $1-million projects. So one I think was just under 4 million. The other one was a couple million, where their nurture cycle was well over a year. One of them was 2 years, and the other one might actually have been closer to 3 or 4 years. But it goes to show you that these projects are available to you, but you have to understand what you're up against. You're up against people that are researching for a long time. And so that's why we say we nurture forever. So let's close out with a couple of mistakes, common mistakes that I see when trying to implement a strategy like this. So the first one is expecting immediate leads. Now, I say leads in the sense that expecting immediate sales opportunities is more what people they want. They turn on some marketing and they think, great, why aren't people talking to me? It's because they're here. It's because they're here and they need to be here in the nurturing process. Then they ignore early stage leads. So if somebody is at the beginning of a 12-month research process and they come to your website and they download something, you email them, they don't respond, it was a junk lead. Like, that's crazy, right? That's crazy. They're going to be thinking about this for 12 months. And just because today they happen to be on your website and they filled out a form that didn't even say, contact us, I want to book a consultation, clearly they were downloading some information, and we respond once and then just disregard that lead forever. What we need to start making the shift to do is say, cool, this person downloaded something on my website out of the zillions of websites in the world. They actually made it to my website and they gave me their information. I responded, they didn't reply back. They're probably in the research phase. So I'm comfortable putting them in my nurture bucket and just knowing that they're not there yet and just acknowledging, I don't know if they're 2 months away or 2 years away. And so now that becomes my goal, is how can I continue to educate them over the coming months and years and offer them more opportunities to connect with me on the sales side. So we need to not ignore those early stage leads, but just recognize we need to put them in the proper bucket. So obviously, no nurture strategy is a big one. I just did a webinar recently, and somebody said they were afraid to send emails to their list because they didn't want to bother them. Please don't do that. Email is one of your best marketing tools. It would be one of the last things I give up out of all the marketing tactics. If you have people on your email list, this is what we want to be doing, delivering this information. Educational, helpful, valuable content. That's how you build trust when you didn't get a referral from somebody. So we need to have a nurture strategy. And then the final one is sales does all the education. So this used to work. Probably about, it might be closer to 25 years ago or more at this point. But salespeople used to have all the cards, all the information, right? You wanted to go buy a TV, buy a car, you'd walk into the store, walk onto the lot, and you were coming in blind. They had all the information. There wasn't, oh, I can just go online and do all my research. It was like, I need to go talk to a salesperson because they have the information. They're going to educate me. That world is gone. That world has been gone for a while. People come into a sales conversation armed with lots of information, all the information. So what we want to do in this process is make sure that information comes from you so that it's correct and it aligns expectations. And so people that just say, no, I'll just let sales do all the education, they actually miss tons of sales opportunities that they just never get because you didn't educate them in the marketing process, and so you weren't able to build up any trust, and you actually never earned the opportunity to have the sales conversation. So they just talk to somebody else. But let's say they land on your website, there's not a lot of information, they just fill out a form and they go and talk to sales. You're starting from ground zero. You now have to build trust, you have to explain everything, and that takes a lot of energy, a lot of effort, stuff gets missed. If you can be doing this over months and months, building up, dripping trust, education, delivering valuable content, by the time they make it to sales, they're actually a lot warmer and they can be referral type leads. And when you experience that, you will never go back, and you'll probably also never want to give up email. Like I don't want to give up email as a marketing tool. So don't let sales do all the education. Do as much as you can in the marketing process because you'll see that your sales conversations are a lot easier. So there's the marketing funnel that works today. Yours is probably broken if you don't have a longer time horizon on your nurturing strategy. We also want to remember that the way people shop and buy today, it's wild. They're bouncing around everywhere. It's over many months. And so the key takeaway here is to make sure that you have a great nurture strategy in place. And all it is including answering questions, helping them learn more about the process, and building up that trust. All right, we'll see you next time here on Builder Funnel TV.